Diana, congratulations on this fifth edition of the Dhaka Art Summit. Curatorially, what's the theme that you've taken? What's the theme that you've chosen to bring all these artists into this one place in this edition?
So this is our fifth summit, but it's our first summit with a title, and that title is Seismic Movements. So seismic movements, or seismograph, is something that measures the impact of an earthquake.
Right.
And there's certain things geologically that can shift the face of the planet. So for example, there's a theory that the Earth was all one continent called Pangea that was split apart.
Right.
So when you think about these splits, they change the way you think about the world. But also on social levels, like feminist movements can be seismic movements. Independence movements, like Bangladesh's war for independence, or the language movement, those can be seismic movements.
Political sort of changes that are going on right now.
Exactly. Or they could also be changes on an individual level. You can have seismic shifts in your life that transform how you do everything else. It's also, seismic movements is not the only title. There's also a Bangla title, which is Shoncharon, because seismic movements does not translate into Bangla in the same way.
Really?
Nor does Shoncharon translate into English that way. So Shoncharon is far more subtle. It's a form of movement or flow that doesn't have a particular direction. It could be something like wind blowing over borders. It could be the weather. It could be blood circulation. It could be love. It could be wisdom.
Wow.
So seismic movements are very direct and strong. Shoncharon's a bit more subtle, but both of them transform the planet and people over generations.
Fantastic. That's awesome. And how many countries are sort of represented in this edition?
I'm really glad you asked that question because I actually have no idea.
Fantastic.
So if you look at the labels, I've removed the country from every artist because, so for example, you have artists that were born in British India, were educated in Pakistan and died in Bangladesh but never left their house.
So what do you call them? What
countries
country
move over people, right? Like, this land has been so many different countries. And so I wanted to make that point also with seismic movements that maybe the country is not what's important.
So I want you to pick, 3 to 5 works that are quite varied in their sort of representation, but also tell us how they fit into this idea of seismic movements.
Great. So this is a work by the Bangladeshi artist Kamruzaman Shadeen. He worked for a year and a half on this with a community of migrants due to climate change in the village of Autobahn in northwest Bengal, or northwest Bangladesh. And so it's called the Fibrous Souls. And what we're looking at, and it's good to look at the ceiling, are shikas, giant shikas woven from jute. But you also see the map of the railways that the British built through Assam.
Oh, that's right.
And it's interesting because they didn't build these railroads to connect people, they built these railroads to extract goods. And one of those goods was jute. And so by building the railroads and raising the land, they transformed this land from a rice-producing land to a jute-producing land. You can't eat jute. So famine, of course, was part of the political realities here. But it's interesting to see that some of the people that live in Assam came from Bangladesh, and the people in Bangladesh went to Assam, and there's songs that carry that history. They're like, "My darling, we must move to Assam. There's nothing for us here." And this work kind of unpacks those histories, which are now very relevant given what's happening in India today.
The social and political sort of impact that's happening. And what's also interesting is the water pots is what this entire installation is holding, actually.
Absolutely, and I'm very glad you brought that up because mud and clay pots was what people used, but the British instituted metal pots. Metal pots became desirable, but metal pots were far more expensive. So to afford them, you had to get into this capitalistic system.
Earn that, to be able to afford that, and the whole vicious cycle.
Exactly.
That's sort of what we are probably dealing with.
Absolutely. I think that this is a beautiful example where a community worked together for a year and a half. Right, so the women who made this benefited economically from making this piece, and we benefit from the enjoyment of getting to experience it here.
Sort of a full circle in a way.
Absolutely.
That's brilliant.
This is a work by the Belgian-Nigerian artist Autobahn. Autobahn, it's an ongoing work. It's called Landversation. It's like a conversation, but it's a landversation. So she spent about a month in Bangladesh meeting different healers, land activists, farmers, and seeing how do they work with the land, how do they heal the land. And she made these sculptural tables, but there's actually people from Bangladesh that will have these land versations with you. So for example, there's a land versation going on over there. But it's the idea that it's people from these places who can learn from their lands that can create better futures, right? Like the British were coming to Bangladesh to benefit them. They didn't have to deal with any of the consequences here.
Right.
So I'm very critical of foreign imported solutions. And so what's I think very special about the summit is we invented our own model for an exhibition from here. And there's incredible initiatives when it comes to land here, like amphibious architecture, floating schools.
Right.
Where Autobahn was saying that she met people who were talking about why is everyone so concerned about the floods? Floods is part of our existence. Floods have happened in every culture. We invent building for the floods. We live with the floods.
Right.
Learn to swim. So this kind of
yeah.
attitude really comes across in some of these land versations here.
But not all foreign influences have been sort of bad or
Absolutely not. But in Bangladesh, for example, I don't know if you know about arsenic poisoning, which is one of the largest poisonings of a population in history. So some foreign NGOs came in here, donated some pumps that weren't deep enough, and extracted arsenic. So I think, again, I'm a very transnational person. I think that international exchanges of ideas are really important, which is why the summit's happening here.
Right.
But to not understand a context and import your solution as the solution is a problem. So I think to have artists here like Autobahn for a month to learn from all these amazing people and for her to share so she's done land versation in China, in Beirut, in Brazil, in the Sao Paulo Biennial. So for her to take all those land versations and include the learnings from Bangladesh is pretty incredible. So I can't wait to see the next initiative, which is going to, the next land versation, which will carry Bangladesh in it.
Exactly, and sort of move forward some of the learning and findings of this project.
Exactly.
Well, what's going on here with the thumb marks and finger marks?
So this is Rana's second kind of participatory installation that she's done in Bangladesh. The first one she did with us was in 2014. So Rana is from Sylhet, and she has childhood memories from Sylhet. So the piece in 2014 was with woven baskets. This piece is memories of seeing workers' hands, like fingerprints on the wall after a day of work, and her finding beauty in that. So she decided for our show that's inspired by Masrul Islam, the Bangladeshi architect, where the materials like bricks carry the marks of the people who made them. She wanted to have a participatory installation where people involved in installing the summit and who are part of the summit would put their fingerprints together and create this immersive installation going up and down the stairs. It kind of looks like it's a galaxy. It kind of looks, there are many things you could read into it, but if we think about democracy, it's built up by individual people's contributions, right? And so this contains the energy of many, many unique people who came together to building this one summit.
So tell me, has she actually used multiple people?
Tons of people. I can't even count how many people. So she's in this too, but she completed the form that was made by people who are here installing and working on the summit.
That's such a beautiful intervention.
Yeah, it's really nice. Even Rajib's fingerprints are in here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And yours?
Maybe, maybe not. I'm not going to reveal. Yeah.
This is obviously spices that this artist has used and made this beautiful curtain out of it. So again, how's this fitting into the theme of the show itself?
So I'm glad you said spices. Obviously, food is very critical, right? So the quest for spices changed the face of the earth, and cloves were one of those spices.
Spice fruits.
Exactly. So this beautiful work that is sent over covers the room, and it's by a Pakistani artist named Matiha Sikandar. The work was made with Indigenous First Nations women in Canada, where the artist currently lives. And she's looking at those connections of labor, and also of extraction, which link both Indigenous art but also Pakistani education.
Wow, so it's that sort of detailing.
Yeah, can you imagine what kind of labor that went into putting together every one of these clothes and glass beads? And glass beads are also pretty political too, if you think of the way that colonizers use beads to buy indigenous land, right? When people had when their idea or their concept of land didn't have a monetary value.
So that's yeah. You know, the anecdote that I know, there was work. This artist's work was supposed to be shown in India, and the customs didn't allow because spice import from Canada.
Exactly. So that had to be handcrafted by someone from Canada. It's a very, very complicated story about how this work got here, but we're very happy it's here.
As I would be.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.